the Bowlesby Pod. Let's start with who do we want to start with? Let's start with the Cougars in Houston and Willie Fritz.
Been playing better than most people expected them to play. We had Zion Chris on the show last week, and he has brought some life to their offense. Their defense was really good. And Zion Chris has put them in a position where if they go 2-1 down the stretch, they're in a bowl game. Mm-hmm. And early in the season, you would not have cast that lot for them, but holy cow, they're good. They're good. They're getting better. You can see that Willie Fritz, it didn't take long for the culture to change there, for him to affect the team, the guys that came back, the guys that he brought in. All of that was well done on Willie Fritz's part. So congrats to him for doing that. Now, look, it's not going to be easy for them to get to 2-1 for the rest of the year, but, after what we've seen, them beating Kansas State and teams like that, TCU, you can't put anything past them anymore.
I don't think there's any shot they win out, but I do think there's the possibility to win two more, and it's these next two, because I don't foresee them having the ability to go out to Provo at the end of the year and beat BYU. But I do think they can beat Arizona in Tucson, and I do think they can beat Baylor in Houston, and those are the two up next. They got the bye week. They got to sit and simmer in that Kansas State win, as unexpected as that was, and really enjoy that for a few extra days. And if you look at the last 4-game stretch, I mean, you beat TCU in Fort Worth, you beat Utah, and you beat Kansas State. There's 0 people on this planet Earth, even with the last name Fritz, that would have predicted that before this season. Absolutely 0. So what an incredible month that was for them to pick up wins over Utah, TCU, and K-State. I mean, that's incredible for that program. Had the early signs of being a pretty tough and pesky team early in the year when they took Oklahoma to the limit. But then they had those couple of games in Big 12 play where you're like, oh, no, this is the Houston that we expect to be at the bottom rung, when they just got absolutely decimated and blown out and shut out versus Iowa State and Cincinnati. And at that point, they've turned a corner since those two blowouts and have gone 3-1 in the Big 12. And it's been pretty cool to watch. The quarterback situation's been kind of topsy-turvy, but Zion Chris has settled in. He's a playmaker. He's not a whistle-to-whistle, like play a complete game type of guy so far that we've seen, but he's like can make enough plays with how good their defense is to put 14 up, and that be good enough to get them in place to win. So I think they're going to need more from the offense down the stretch to keep making noise, but that defense is really, really good. They've absolutely exceeded expectations. And, yeah, a bowl game's actually a possibility with 3 games to play, which I don't know how many people would have predicted that either. So I think of the 3 games remaining, this is their best shot to win another one, is to go to Arizona and beat the Wildcats. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this one, and I think that the sky's the limit for Willie Fritz and company moving forward.
They were off to the start that most everybody thought. Remember, they took Oklahoma to the wire, and now you look at that, and it's still a hell of an effort. But OU just can't do anything on offense. But OU happened to win that game. They were 1-4, and then they won the game in Fort Worth against TCU, and everyone was like, what? And then, of course, got blown out by KU. But since that time, nice wins, tough wins against Utah, and then the big one against Kansas State. Now, let's go from Houston. Let's go to Cincinnati and Coach Satterfield and what he's doing with the Bearcats.
Obviously started out better than they've been going. Just took that loss to West Virginia, which I think shocked a lot of Cincinnati fans. I think they were hoping to get earlier season West Virginia, not one that's been playing better. But still, I mean, I think, everything's a net positive from them, right? Like that they've had this year. They're on the way up. You can see it with them. And, that loss to West Virginia, though, I think did probably,
Hey, they've got Iowa State, Kansas State coming up next.
Yeah,
and then TCU. But
yeah, especially because it is Iowa State, who's lost 2 games in a row, right. And you're going to their
both
place,
on the road, yeah.
And they're going to be really, really hungry. Yeah, and so, yeah, that's going to be tough.
I think that losing to West Virginia might have blown their bowl chances because there's not a gimme left on this schedule. I don't anticipate them going and winning in Ames this weekend. I wouldn't expect them to go to Manhattan and win. And TCU at the end of the year, I mean, TCU's definitely good enough to beat them. So they're cutting it close. And they can quiet all that, just go win this weekend and leave no doubts and not break a sweat. But you are getting into that territory where you start to go like, all right, we've got 3 games to win one. S, we've got 2 games to win one.
Yep.
F, we got to win this one. And that's what you want to try to avoid, but that's the situation that they might find themselves because of that West Virginia loss, which don't turn the ball over 3 times. Brendan Sorsby, who's been great, and he's the reason why they've even won 5 games, but the turnovers really cost him in a very winnable game. I don't think that West Virginia played particularly well, but they played well enough to outlast Cincinnati, and I just think that was a big old missed opportunity at home against a beatable team. So we'll see if they come to regret that showing and if it comes back to bite them. But I would imagine that Brendan Sorsby is probably getting some offers from bigger schools as well. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I don't know about millions of dollars and all of those things, but I sure as hell feel like if John Mateer, and I'm not saying this disrespectfully, I think John Mateer is a really good player, but I would think if guys like him are commanding $1 million, and I could definitely see somebody going, Brendan Sorsby could sling it around. I think he could help us win at Vanderbilt or wherever. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. So yeah, it's a big week to week now for them. They got to get win number 6. That's a big thing. They've definitely improved, but you don't want to end the season on a 5-game losing streak, which is what not making a bowl game would look like, because that would absolutely alter the entire picture of how you look back on what was otherwise a really good start to the year.
I missed it. I had Cincinnati winning that game with West Virginia, and I missed it. But now, if you look at it with what's happening with them, that was they're like a lot of teams. There's a chunk of 6 to 8 teams that can pretty much beat anybody, and again, then you just aren't so sure about who they are at times. Now UCF, my goodness, whoo, man, they've lost 6 of their last 7 after a 3-0 start. They had the win against TCU on the road, which was critical to open up conference play, but they are in deep. They have the off week, and then they go to Morgantown. They close out against Utah at home. Man, what a disappointing stretch for UCF.
Our Lady of Blessed Off Weeks. Thank you. If you're a UCF fan, I'm sorry. UCF. I'm sorry, I almost made a mistake there. Please do not.
What did you say?
I almost said S.
Oh yeah, no.
Twitter. If you're a UCF fan,
we're gonna do next. Paul call them the Golden Knights.
Yeah. No. If you're a UCF fan, it's been a slog of a season. I was way off on KJ Jefferson. I thought he would be fantastic in this offense. Then they went from him to Ja'Curry Brown. Now they're on the 3rd quarterback of the year, who's actually probably the best one of the bunch. And yeah, they really need this week off and hopefully can, get their heads right down the stretch. But they've got to go 2-0 against West Virginia on the road. And then Utah, that one's winnable on a Friday night at home. But, I mean, would it put it past you for them to finish this year 4-8? It wouldn't surprise me the way things have gone. They just have no momentum at all at any point.
Well, Dylan Risk is not their 3rd; he's their 4th quarterback at this point. It had a little bit of a situation where, now his name's escaping me. Young man who played very, very briefly.
Ja'Curry Brown?
No, E.J. Colson.
Oh, okay.
So that was the guy that you're probably not thinking of. But Dylan Risk, still has provided a little bit of a spark. That was a nice back-and-forth game with Arizona State tonight. They win and got their tails kicked by any means. They just lost a really competitive, tight back-and-forth game late in the game on the road. And it doesn't make it feel any better, but I do think that they are playing better. And it's not showing, unfortunately, in the standings. But these last couple of weeks, I think there have been signs of this Dylan Risk kid's got a little something to him. Now, he did not have nearly the game he had the week prior, so maybe that helps explain why he wasn't the starting quarterback from the very outset when he has this big game. Everybody's like, where's this been? Why did you go get KJ Jefferson? He's not just making that emphatic statement week after week. He didn't have the best game, but he can sling it around, and I just hope that what doesn't get lost in this season for UCF is how incredible R.J. Harvey's been. He's had an awesome year, truly awesome year, one of the best running back production seasons in the entire country. And I think we say it and we mention, R.J. Harvey in the rushing attack, but we don't really talk about what he's posting every week. And that's unfortunate because he's been sensational, and he's a big part why they're in most of the games that they're actually in. So had another great game. He's amazing, but, yeah, they just man, they're floundering, and I just don't know how you continue to sell the Gus Malzahn vision with the way it's kind of trending, and you see why there's these outcries for change because it's just sort of plodding along now, and it's dipping, but it's not really ever coming back up to the surface all that often, even though you got that win over Arizona. Without that, you're riding a, 8-game losing streak right now? You've lost 7 of your last 8, so it's bad, man. And at least you got R.J. Harvey to look forward to every week, but they need to figure some things out this offseason. And I think it's possible to win these next 2 and go bowling and kind of salvage this, but going to Morgantown is definitely not a guarantee. I do think that Utah is a game you feel pretty good about at home at the end of the year. And if you beat West Virginia in a couple weeks, then I think you feel great about winning number 6 in front of the UCF fans. But we'll see. They are probably loving this bye week and just getting a little mental break as much as a physical break of anything with the way the losses have piled up.
Did you say Golden Knights, Paul? I just
No,
want not
he
Paul.
did.
Okay,
I didn't finish it. I caught myself.
And here, I bring that up not to, I guess, joking a little bit, but my God, they were everywhere. The fans, right? UCF football, the Twitter, all of that. I mean, everywhere, and they were proud. They had a nice little thing going, and now part of the Big 12, but they has been so quiet.
I think the fan base has turned on Gus, too.
Yeah, man, they're tired of it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they got kind of spoiled there where they had a really great run, and I would say that about anybody who's got a string of years, and especially when you change head coaches and you're still having success, like you get kind of spoiled by that. Every program does, and I think there's a certain bar that you feel like is set, and you get that big call to the Big 12, and everything's rolling. You got Gus Malzahn, who's done this and that during his career, and these are not the results that you expected. And there's not really a tremendous sign of like, well, all these guys were hurt, and that's why. I mean, you can say like, well, hey, we've got Dylan Risk coming back next year or whatever, but I just don't know how pumped up people are for running it back with Gus again without some more major changes. And the thing is, they had major changes this offseason, but that then had to do in-season, changes. And so it's just kind of messy. It's not real cohesive, and it's just kind of all over the place. The one constant is just losing every week now at this point, and that's not something that they got used to down in Orlando when they were winning 9-10 games every year there for a little while. So, yeah, these last couple of years have been rough.
So we've hit Cincinnati, we've hit Houston, we've hit UCF, and then the leader of the pack, BYU, unbeaten, number 6 when it comes to the college football playoff standings. Huge win against Utah, dramatic final drive, all the drama with it. And here we are with the Cougars and Kalani Sitake still right there at 9-0.
We had, because I don't know if you guys know that we do this, but every other Thursday in the triple option, we have a shelter dog come in here to try to help them get adopted. Today we had a dog named Yogi come in, and this is the first time we do this. We took the BYU and Kansas helmets back here from Green Gridiron, and we put dog treats in them, and Yogi picked the BYU Kansas game. He picked the 7-month-old pit bull. He got hit by a car. He's doing great. He was very sweet, but he picked BYU. And I said if he picked Kansas, I would flip my pick. But he picked BYU. I'm going with Yogi. But this is, BYU is not a juggernaut. They're just really consistent and good. And Kansas is on their upswing right now. So they're on full upset alert this week at BYU. Would not be surprised to see Kansas be able to pull this off because it feels like somebody's going to get them eventually, and the undefeated teams are running out, and they are still one of them. But should they go on and win and continue to be undefeated, not shocking at all because they just have something special about them.
Yeah, I mean, they're a very solid team. I don't think they're going to blow you away with just any singular part, but I think you watch long enough and you are definitely impressed by Jake Retzloff. Even when he's not having great games, he manages to make some plays to help you win the game. And I think you saw that the other night. Their defense is obviously very solid, even though Utah is not the best example, but we've seen them be consistent throughout the year. And SMU's throwing up a lot of points on people, and I know it was earlier in the year, but they held SMU to 5 field goals. So that defense has been consistent from basically the start of the season here towards the end, and the running game has gotten a little bit better with LJ Martin healthy and in the fold. Their receivers are obviously really talented and really good. There's a lot to like. I don't know if there's anything that you just love necessarily when it comes to like the big picture and why they could end up in the national championship game or anything, but I don't think that's really going to be the case for maybe any Big 12 teams most years, right? I think we've been kind of on record as saying like, hey, you're going to have a much better chance to get a Big 12 team into the playoff with the new format, but the odds of actually winning it have gone down.
Yeah.
Because you're not built to win 4 games against teams like the teams you're going to be seeing in the top 12 of the polls. But I think BYU set up to maybe win a couple games. They just got to take it week by week, and they'll find themselves exactly where they need to be with a bye in the first round. And that's how I think a Big 12 team can make a deep push is, get a bye, maybe an upset, or you get a good draw, and then bam, you find yourself in that Final Four, and then who the hell knows at that point in time. But they're in line to get that bye right now, which I think is extremely important. They're in line for, obviously, the Big 12 title in Arlington, which is a must-have, and they're in line for a 10-0 start, and they get to play at home where they are very, very tough to beat. So a lot of things are lining up really well for them. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop. And that last week, I felt like, okay, here's the game that's going to finally get away from them, but they managed to win again. So hats off to them. I don't know how sustainable that is, but it's ridden them through the first 9 weeks of the season. And I think they're going to be favored in every one of the games moving forward, but they've got a couple challenges. Like Kansas is red hot. Going to Tempe is not going to be easy with the way Arizona State's playing. So, it's going to be an interesting final 3 games, but I like their chances.
They are on the edge. They're winning close games, but they are playing with fire. But God bless them, they continue to win.